is everything you need to know to visit the beautiful English countryside known as the Cotswolds. You ready?
Yeah.
All right, let's go.
The first thing to know just a little bit more about this area. The Cotswolds is renowned as an area of natural beauty, charming villages, historic architecture, and beautiful honey-colored houses. Now, the reason why people often come here is to really get away from the hustle and bustle of daily life and have a piece of idyllic quiet and quaintness. They really refer to the Cotswolds often as the ideal English countryside. The UK government has actually defined this area as an area of outstanding national beauty, and it's got an acronym to go with it too, AONB, so you know it's legit. Now, before the Cotswolds was discovered by tourists, it was originally a region popular for producing wool, and not just any wool. Some of the world's best wool was produced here. Where there's wool, there's sheep. Where there's sheep, there's rolling green hills. And along these rolling green hills, there are some great paths that you can walk around. Some of the best things to do in the Cotswolds are to explore these natural paths through the rolling green hills and also to explore the villages. There's no big attractions here. There's no Westminster Abbey. There's no Big Ben, but what there are villages just like this one. I am at Burton in the Water, and by the way, every shot of this video, every scene is going to be shot in a different part of the Cotswolds, but Burton in the Water is one of the popular villages famous for this water feature that goes to the village. There are 5 stone bridges that go across this canal, and one of them, the earliest one, was built in the 1600s, so lots of awesome history here. Kind of great place to just get around, explore, and maybe have a bite to eat or drink at one of the benches along the water. The second thing to know, some information to help you get oriented to the region, and it's really big. It's 800 square miles, and so there's a lot of stuff here. It covers the area from Bath in the southwest to Warmington in the northeast. Now, your time in the Cotswolds is essentially going to be visiting villages that make up this region, because in between the villages, there's generally a whole lot of nothing. I mean, when I say nothing, I mean like there's rolling green hills and there's sheep, and it's really beautiful, but chances are on a lot of those roads you can't actually stop, and there aren't things to really like see from stopping. Where you'll be stopping are in the villages. So some of the notable villages you might want to visit. The first one, Burton in the Water, where I started this video. It is often referred to as the Venice of the Cotswolds. This village is known for its picturesque river and bridges. Bibury is famous for its Arlington Row. This is probably the most photographed part of the Cotswolds. It has a row of thatched cottages. That's really one of the most photographed scenes, not just the Cotswolds, but all of England. Chipping Campden is a market town that has a beautiful high street lined with historic buildings. Burford is a charming village known for its steep hill and its medieval castle ruins. And Castle Combe is a picturesque village often used as a filming location, known for its winding streets and ancient stone buildings. The one town that I will not be covering in this video is Bath, because I've got a whole separate travel guide on Bath if you are planning a visit to Bath in addition to the Cotswolds. It's much more city-like. I'd consider it really separate from your Cotswolds countryside trip. You can check out my guide all about Bath in the description or at the end of this video. The third thing to know is about getting into the Cotswolds. Now, if you're flying, the closest airports are going to be Bristol Airport and Birmingham. Those are about a 45-minute drive away. London Heathrow and Gatwick are about a 2-hour drive away. I quote driving times because that's really how most people get here, by driving, and it's definitely going to be the best because it's really useful to have a car when we talk about getting around. But if you don't want to do the whole car thing, and I totally don't blame you, you do have a few other options. You can come into the Cotswolds by train. There's a direct train operated by the Great Western Railway from London Paddington Station to Moreton in the Marsh in the center of the Cotswolds. The train ride will take you about 90 minutes, and the services run about hourly. You'll also find direct trains from London Paddington to Cheltenham. That's going to take about 2 hours. Now, the way we got in was a train from London Paddington Station to Bath, also operated by the Great Western Railway. Those go every 30 minutes. We spent a few nights in Bath before continuing on to the rest of the Cotswolds. That's where we picked up our rental car. Now, if you want to do the train thing on your arrival day, your best bet is to fly into London Heathrow. You can then take the Heathrow Express train from the airport to London Paddington Station. That train operates every 15 minutes and takes just about 15 minutes, and then you're at London Paddington, your gateway into the Cotswolds by train. Oh, and definitely do consider buying your tickets online in advance. The tickets get really expensive the closer in you get to buying buying the tickets to the day of travel, so this is one where it's useful to be able to plan ahead. The fourth thing to know is about getting around the Cotswolds, and because the Cotswolds is a very rural place, you're not going to find a lot of public transportation to take you around here. Sure, there are a few buses that you can take between the different towns, and if you're going to do that, definitely make sure to pay attention to the times because they don't come very often. Which means that most people get around the Cotswolds by driving a car in and around. Now, when you're driving around here, what you should know is that the roads are quite narrow. They are country roads. Some of them are just one-lane country roads. I don't mean one lane on either side, I mean just one lane, which means that if you see a car coming, you will need to yield, or somebody will need to yield, or somebody's gonna need to back up. So you can be the polite one and you can yield for the other cars to come by. It's a little bit unnerving driving around here, honestly, because the speed limit on many of these roads is like 60 miles per hour. And so when you're passing a big truck at 60 miles per hour, going pretty fast, I would say try to do your driving in the daytime and get back close to your hotel by nighttime, so you're not doing a lot of nighttime driving on these country roads. Also, things are far apart in the Cotswolds, so definitely plan your destinations so they're near each other. Otherwise, you could be driving, you know, an hour and a half or 2 hours between destinations if you're going from the north to the south of the Cotswolds. Do really be careful with the driving directions that your GPS or Google Maps gives you, because there's been a few times where it's navigated me and others to places like this where you're like, I don't think I'm going across. You'll need to find another way. Though one of the biggest challenges with driving around the Cotswolds is parking. Particularly in the most popular villages, parking is really challenging, and when you do find parking, you'll find it's very time limited. Do be mindful of these things. This says like 90 minutes of parking, and then you can't come back to the same area within 2 hours according to the sign, so pay attention to that. Your best bets for parking in the popular towns are going to be early in the morning for all the day trippers arrive, and late at night when all the day trippers leave. And also pay attention to what looks like street parking but really isn't. To me, this looks like a public parking spot, but it's actually the Chestnut bed and breakfast parking. Oh, and it may be counterintuitive if you're from a country like the USA, but you can park on either side of the street in any direction. You don't have to park on the same side that you're facing, so you'll see cars facing every direction on either side. If you see a spot and you're on the other side of the street, just go ahead and zoom over there and tuck on in. Now, the other great way to get around is to walk. There are tons of great walking paths here. There really aren't sidewalks on the roads. Don't walk on the side of the roads. There's really not enough room for cars and for you to walk. The places for you to walk are places like this, paths that are in the rural land, in the farmland. The most famous of them is called the Cotswold Way. It is about 100-mile, 160-kilometer route that'll take you from the south to the north of the Cotswolds, and it runs along a lot of private property. The way these paths work here is there are these gates that separate the private property where they're raising sheep or deers. You just go ahead and open the gate and you go in and you close the gate after you. Now, there are some that might say private property, don't go on those, but if they're public paths, then absolutely go ahead. They really believe in the right to pass for people to be able to get where they're going. And so as you're walking around here, definitely make sure to respect that a lot of these footpaths are private property. And so pick up your trash with you. Don't leave your dog poopy around. Overall, be nice while you're there. I wish this notion of like right to pass would be like more worldwide, because, you know, I feel like if you do this in some parts of the USA, particularly in Texas, someone's liable to come out to you with a shotgun. So, hey, thank you, UK and the culture and the laws and all the people that allow us to pass so we can do these awesome walks. And now you might be wondering, Chris, what about taxis? Are taxis an option? There are taxi companies that serve the Cotswolds. They're not just hanging around waiting to pick up people. If you want a taxi, you'll definitely need to pre-book it in advance, find their names, find their numbers, make a booking, make an appointment so they get you where you're going and get you back again. Otherwise, you're gonna be stuck and maybe sleeping out under the stars. The fifth thing to know is about the weather and when to go and how long to stay in the Cotswolds. And so first we'll start with the weather. Summer is definitely going to be the warmest and driest season, with July being like peak best weather in the Cotswolds. Although the problem with the summer is that that's when all the school kids are out of school and that's when everybody comes. So the busiest months are going to be July and August, because you've got 70-degree high temperatures, you've got the longest days, and you've got the least least amount of rain, which means the hotels are going to be the most expensive, the restaurants are going to be the most expensive, and so if you're coming in those months, you'll probably want to spend your time out of the village centers because you won't be able to find any parking. Instead, you'll want to spend your time on the paths and out in nature. I would say the best times to come are shoulder season, so that would be like April or May or September or October. At that point in time, the crowds have gone away and you can have the Cotswolds a bit more to yourself. We are filming this October 4th, 2024. That is today. And the weather here, it's definitely English weather. So you get like rain half the time, like average rain, like 13 days a month, something like that. So every other day on average, it's going to be raining. If you're going to be doing the hikes, you might want to consider bringing some galoshes or some boots or something like that. That'll be good in muddy weather if you're here when it's raining. The rain usually is not a downpour. It's usually more of this like annoying drizzle all throughout the time. If you come in the winter, it does get down to freezing temperatures in some parts of the Cotswold, and it does get snow occasionally in January, February, although pretty rare. How long to spend? We spent 3 nights and 2 days here, which we felt was pretty quick. It's a pretty big region. If you want to see all of it and have a leisurely time, maybe 5 days, but I would say it's definitely worth at least a night or 2 here to make sure you get the full experience. You should know about the food. Now, if you're looking to eat in the Cotswolds, most of the food around here I'm gonna call like modern gastropub food. So classic British food, you're gonna find things like burgers and fries, or should I call them chips. You'll certainly find a lot of fish and chips. For lunch, pretty easy. Just go to one of these villages and find some place to eat. If you're looking to come here for dinner and eat dinner, particularly on the weekend, you're definitely gonna wanna make a reservation ahead of time because there's so many people here at dinner time and not enough restaurants, and then you end up not being able to find a place to eat and have to just get some food from the supermarket and feel very sad about it. So make your booking ahead of time, particularly if you come in the summer for your dinner, particularly on the weekends. Thank me for it later. Oh, and certainly I can't tell you all the good places to eat in the Cotswolds because it's 800 square miles. It's big, but I'll tell you some of the places we ate while we were here for 3 days. Right here, we're at the Dial House. This is in Burton on the water. Had a charming little area out front. Had kind of a neat inside too. I got the burger. OC girl got the hoisin duck right here. I'm drinking a ginger beer and vodka. Vodka, Chris. You don't drink vodka. I don't, but I told you it's a modern gastropub. This is what they put the water in. So back on the topic of these modern gastropubs, we found one outside of Chipping Camden. This one's called the Baker's Arms, recently remodeled in 2024. We've got classic pub food like fish and chips right here with the mushy peas, and I've got their special, which is this fancy duck thing with like a potato terrine. I mean, does this look like anything you would get from a classic pub? No. That's what makes it a modern gastropub. Oh, noisy in here too, but lively. Everybody's having a good time. Now, if you're looking for a quick afternoon tea in the Cotswolds, check out Huffkins. They've got a few locations across the region. We're at the one in Stowe. For a few reasonable pounds, you get a cream tea, clotted cream, jam, scone, regular, or the fruit tea. Their specialty is the lardy, and they also have another bunch of pastries in there. Super fast from the time you order to get it, like 2 minutes. So a couple more points about restaurants. One, you don't really have to tip in the UK, but you will find many of these restaurants often add a 10% service charge. This list is optional. They'll usually pre-add to the bill. If you want to take it off, you could. Also, related to reservations, if you make a reservation like we did tonight at 6:15, you can generally come by earlier and still get seated because generally they reserve your table for almost the whole night. You'll look at restaurants and they'll tell you they're completely booked and you find all the tables are empty, but that's because they're generally reserved for the night for people. If it is the time limit, like they'll let you know when there's a time limit, but usually there isn't, so turning up early is no problem. The restaurant we're eating at right now, it is the Stag at Stowe in the Wald. I've got the Cotswold chicken. You should also know that a lot of these places that have a main course expect you to order the side as well, so the mashed potatoes are separate. OC Girl has some fancy ravioli, and for the Curious Princess, we have the children's steak and fries, because yes, you can find fries or chips pretty much anywhere in the UK, even at Chinese restaurants. You'll find chips or fries too. So as a note on the Stow on the Wold, this is actually a great village to visit. There's a lot of restaurants here, there's a lot of shops here, so if you're looking for some place to eat that has easy parking, you will find probably some of the most parking of any of the villages here at Stow. Definitely check it out. Check out the old church that's here, and check out their small little cute alleyways too. One of the things that Stow is famous for are these very narrow alleyways. They run right into the market square, and many people say one of the reasons might be to count sheep, because 2 sheep couldn't pass each other through here. The second thing to know is about hotels, and there are a lot of different hotels to choose from ultra luxurious like this hotel behind me, the Slaughter Manor House, to more budget bed and breakfast type accommodations. What you won't find in the Cotswolds is you won't find any of the big international chains. There's not much in the way of Marriott's, Hyatt's, or Hilton's here. So as you're looking at these hotels, they're going to be much more of the traditional English variety in historic buildings, which means they're generally small, both the size of the hotel and number of rooms, and also the size of the rooms. If you're looking to book more than a couple people for the room, then you'll need to book bigger rooms, because most of the rooms at these hotels have a maximum occupancy of 2. So do pay attention to the number of people that you've put in when you are booking. Also, because they are small, you will want to book ahead of time. I would say at least 3 months out if you're coming in the low season, 6 months out if you're coming in the summer. For the best deals, definitely midweek. It's going to be most expensive on the weekends. Many of these hotels offer extended stay discounts if you stay 3 or more nights, since most people tend to just spend 2 days for a weekend trip to the region. Now, it's a big region, so where do you want to stay? Stow on the Wold and Chipping Campden are good central spots in the central of the Cotswolds, though you can't go wrong with any village here. I feel like something you should definitely pay attention to, though, is how close to the road your hotel is. And this was something that we didn't really pay attention to. We were staying at this hotel called Number 4 at Stow, and we stayed in this really cute cottage. I mean, it was really cute. The Curious Princess really loved it. It was right next to a busy road, and so we could not just hear trucks driving through at night, we could actually like feel trucks driving by at night. And that was something I hadn't really considered coming here, was like, I figured they're country roads, so they'll be quiet at night, right? But like, no, there's like some really big trucks and farm equipment that goes through on these country roads. And so I would say take a look at the reviews, take a look at Google Maps. A hotel like this one, the Slaughter Manor House, I've not stayed there. This isn't sponsored, but what I want to point out is it has this big grassy area between it and the road. And so this is going to be quiet, where if you have something that is right on the road in historic Old Town, might be busy. Other thing you should think about is if there's a town you really want to see, a place you really want to see, and you're coming here in the summer, it might be worthwhile getting a hotel that is right there at that spot. If you really want to see those row houses in Bibury, you might want to book the Swan Inn in Bibury, because then you don't have to deal with parking. You will have a parking spot because you're spending the night there. Or you might not care about any of that, and then you might want to book a little bit more of a country hotel. The 8th thing to know is about shopping, and I really feel like the best shopping to be done in the Cotswolds is just browsing all of the little boutiques and shops in the classic villages. You should know, though, that most of those shops do close really early. Think by 5 p.m. all the stores are pretty much shut and closed, and then it's time for dinner. Now, since COVID, a lot of these stores prefer card payments or even only take card payments. While we've been here in the Cotswolds, I haven't used cash at all at any of the stores to pay for anything. I've only used card. The only time we really needed cash was to use the restrooms. Some of the public toilets require coins to get into the toilet, so it is worthwhile to carry some coins with you so that you can use the loo while you're out and about. Now, if you're looking for some bigger shopping, like a shopping mall, I think the biggest one in the area is going to be in Swindon. There's a designer outlet there with over 100 stores all under one roof, and they're building a new designer outlet opening in 2025 near Tewkesbury. And the 9th thing to know is some of the best things to do in the Cotswolds. Now, one of the most photographed villages in all of the Cotswolds is known as Bibury. It's famous for its Arlington Row, this row of historic thatched cottages. That's what people come here for. They take a picture here, and it is often considered not just one of the most photographed scenes in the Cotswolds, but one of the most photographed in all of England. And by the way, you might hear me refer to this later in the video as Bibury. I have a 4-year-old daughter. I was thinking about bibs, so that's where that came from, but it's pronounced Bibury. So just know that if you are visiting some of these villages, some are really small. This is one where we got here at 10 in the morning, and the parking was already starting to fill up. The tour groups were definitely starting to come on. If you are planning to come to Bibury, your parking choice, because there's only like 30 street parking stalls, is to park in the Trout Farm. The Trout Farm car park, £5. You can park over there. A little bit longer of a walk, but you can actually park. And when you do come to these homes, they're actually people's homes, so be polite. Don't stick your camera in their windows. Don't peek inside. Don't be a peeping Tom or a peeping Chris or a peeping princess. Take your pictures and be polite. You'd appreciate it if you lived there too. So by the way, if there was one of these villages that you were looking to skip because you had limited time or you're here in the summer and things are too busy, it would be this one, Bibury. I mean, these houses are cute, but are they that cute? There are tons of tour groups here, really busy. If you were coming to the Cotswolds for peace and an idyllic setting, this is not it. But if you're a completist and you definitely want to get the selfie here and you want to see it, then make sure you come early. Come before 10 in the morning, come late at night when the London day trippers aren't here and the tour groups aren't here, so you can get the picture all to yourself and not with 1,000 people. So another set of villages that are pretty cool to visit if you're looking for something quaint like Bibury, except without all the tour groups, are Upper and Lower Slaughter. This pair of towns are still quaint, still relaxed, still undiscovered by the tourist hordes. You'll find these same cream golden colored cottages. You'll find a place where people live. You will find 3 restaurants. There are 2 restaurants in Lower Slaughter and 1 restaurant in Upper Slaughter. And you'll find peace and serenity. This is definitely a place that you walk around and just enjoy and take in the scenery. You don't annoy the people who live here. Of course, you wouldn't do that. And to get between the 2 towns, you can walk. There's a really neat public footpath that connects the 2. It's about a 20-minute walk from one to the other. My suggestion, if you haven't made a reservation for food, would absolutely be to eat in Lower Slaughter at the kind of more casual place that has some outdoor seats, because you can just turn up there without a reservation, make your way up to Upper Slaughter, enjoy it, walk around, and then go back. Otherwise, if you've got kiddos and they're with you, then you might want to bring some snacks. Princess is really happy with these crisps that Papa brought her, because there's nothing else to eat. All right, now let's talk about some of the things to do that aren't just visiting the villages and walking around on the great paths. One of them that you can do is to visit the Broadway Tower. This one has the tagline, Cotswold's Greatest Castle. It's not very big, is it? No, not a lot of big castles here in the Cotswolds, but this one, very nicely maintained, some nice windows in it, 1, 2, 3, 4 stories. You can go out on the top and see the lookout. You do have to book a time ticket to go in. They also do tours of the nuclear bunker. If you're cheap like us, then you can just come and take a look around, enjoy the grounds, and enjoy the deer. There are like tons of deer that live here. There's do you call them a flock of deer, a colony of deer? What do you call a gaggle of deer? What do you call a lot of deer? Somebody please let me know in the comments that knows a lot about deer. A doe, a deer, a female deer, but there's about 20 deer just within 30 feet of us right over there. The Broadway Tower also has a nice set of walks around it. There's a white route and a red route. They got a map right at the parking lot. One of the great parts about doing this walk, the parking's easy. They have a lot of parking here at the Broadway Tower. You do have to pay for it. It's like £3 for 4 hours, so pretty inexpensive. And in addition to those deer earlier, you will also find yourself a bunch of sheep along this walk too. Oh, and I thought they called themselves here Cotswold's Finest Castle. I must have misread it. It said Cotswold's Highest Castle, but I think it's pretty fine too. And also at the Broadway Tower, they've got a couple of restaurants and cafes. There's one up by the main parking lot, and then there's the satellite one that they call the Tower Barn. You can stop in for a spot of tea, or if you're like us, perhaps a spot of hot chocolate. They have really nice indoor seating and really nice outdoor seating, and a gift shop too. And it's also a great place for singing as well. Another cool thing to do in the Cotswolds is to visit the churches. Nearly every village in the Cotswolds is going to have a great and glorious church that are often known as the wool churches. Wool churches? What do you mean, Chris? Aren't they churches to God or Jesus or Christian or Catholicism? Well, in fact, they call them wool churches because it was wool that made this town so rich. And there are these grand churches because back in the day, it was all the wool farmers that were very wealthy that would come and give their money to the glory of God to build these magnificent churches. They are definitely big and outwardly sized for these towns. This one right here, the St. James Church in Chipping, Camden, open 24 hours. Admission to this church is free, though you can pick up a guidebook for £4. Or if you prefer just to leave a donation, they have a machine and they will happily take your donation on a credit card right here by tap too. They'll also take Apple Pay and Google Pay. What a high-tech church. And if you're thinking, Chris, you must be full of sheep. That story can't possibly be true. Well, even in the entrance to this church, they have a whole banner here about sheep. Yes, they were built on wool. And more proof that these churches were built on wool and that they love their sheep. What do you see just beyond the cemetery here? Yes, actual sheep. So as the princess was counting sheep over there, we couldn't help but notice somebody actually walking in where the sheep was. And so we came to check it out and found the sign over there that says public footpath. And lo and behold, there is a little gate right here that you can open. And you can come in and you can be in the field with the sheep. I have never been in a field with this many sheep before. Let's go, says the princess, and meet some sheep, shall we? What should we call this one? Should we call this one Seymour? No, that was the name of the house. Should we call this one Susan?
No.
No?
Call it flower horn.
Flower horns is what she says we should call the sheep. Again, this is another one of those experiences for a city slicker like me that is just really neat to stand and walk across a field of sheep.
Sheep.
Now, if you do come into the pass where the sheeps are, do beware of sheep poop, because where there are sheep, there is also poop.
And the last thing to know is I've got even more videos on the UK. If you're connecting this with a trip to Bath, you might enjoy my Bath travel guide right here. Or if you're gonna be in London, you might enjoy my whole London travel series right here. Or if you wanna see what we did on our whole 8-day adventure, London, Bath, and the Cotswolds, then you'll enjoy this video right down here. Links are also in the description below. As usual, I won't say goodbye because I'll see you in one of those videos.